Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. Owen Shroyer filling in with Dr. Group. It's been a pleasure. Truly has been a pleasure, not just to fill in for Alex Jones, which was once a dream of mine, but to be on air with you, Dr. Group.
Yeah,
always a pleasure. Great. And I got to remind you guys out there, Memorial Day weekend is coming up. Gotta love Memorial Day, and you gotta love the Memorial Day specials that are going on right now at InfoWarsStore.com. Check these specials out, folks. Honestly, these specials are so great, especially if maybe perhaps because of a financial situation you haven't been able to buy and try some of these products. Now is the time. The best specials we have seen at InfoWarsStore.com in a long time. We're about to be joined by Roger Stone. Is he ready to go right now, guys? All right. Hey, Roger, can you hear me?
Owen Shroyer, great to see you. Great to be with you.
It's good to be with you as well, Roger. Well, what is on your mind today? We've covered the waterfront of news, and what is leading your stories right now?
Well, first of all, Owen, you show graphically why you are on the Mr. Stone's International Best Dressed list with a killer necktie.
Thank you.
I'm very proud. I'm very proud of you. I of course, today am wearing this outfit, this hat, this terrific turtleneck, these shades. And when I wore it previously on InfoWars, a number of leftists attacked me, not understanding that it was a fashion homage to Bobby Seale, to Huey Newton, to the Panthers. I didn't like their ideology, but these guys looked great. You see, the problem with the left is they have no sense of style as well as no belief in America. There we go. You see?
Wait a second. I mean, whoa. I've seen Roger. I've seen Chunk Yogurt. I've seen Chunk Yogurt hosting the Young Turks. I mean, the guy is clearly put together with that suit he's got.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, and I've loved watching you guys. I love. Here you go. You get another image. These guys had style, so it's a homage. Relax, leftists who.
Oh my gosh! Wait a second. A Donald Trump supporter paying homage to African American fashion? I can't even.
It's style. This is all about style. Anyway, I've enjoyed this. I love the Doctor. You know, if I do a remake of Back to the Future, he is the guy to kind of play that part. And you guys are bringing unbelievable products to the InfoWars store. I mean, as you know, brain force for me is almost a requirement given the high pace of beating back the Senate and House Intelligence Committees in my demand to testify, keeping track of the Seth Rich murder probe, which we're going to talk about a little later, following the president's trip 9 days abroad. That troubles me some. 9 days is a long time for the president to be out of Washington. But the stagecraft, I think, has been generally good with a few problems we'll talk about. What interests me is the polling continues to show real intensity and support for those who back the president. See, they're not buying the mainstream media takedown, something they couldn't achieve at the ballot box, but they now seek to achieve through a deep state coup, a collusion indeed between the mainstream media and the left wing of the Democratic Party.
Roger, you know, I actually have a question for you. There is talks right now about obviously the leakers from the White House is a very real situation right now. I think that everybody's kind of recognized that. The leaks magically stopped as soon as Trump took off, right after the New York Times and the Washington Compost published their smear pieces right after Donald Trump took off. But then the leaks stopped. Now there's rumors that once Trump gets back to America, that some of these leakers have been identified and maybe on the way out. Do you have any intel on that?
Well, it is interesting that the leaking stopped when the president went abroad because, of course, perhaps the leakers were in the entourage. Perhaps those leakers are now back in Washington. We don't know for certain. On the other hand, there has been speculation in the newspapers that the president would bring in Corey Lewandowski and David Bossie as latter-day plumbers, guys in charge of finding the leaks. This is a terrible idea. First, I don't think either one of them could find their arse with both hands, as our friend Paul Joseph Watson might say. But secondarily, they're not attorneys. They have no law enforcement experience. This reminds me of G. Gordon Liddy and E. Howard Hunt. These guys will end up in jail. If the president wants to find the leakers, do what Lyndon Johnson did rather than Richard Nixon. Appoint a strong, independent law enforcement man or woman to head the FBI. Someone like Ray Kelly, the former New York police commissioner, or someone like Judge Jeanine Pirro, and do this legally. There's awesome investigative powers in the Justice Department and the FBI. Law has been violated here. You see, the difference between Watergate and what we see going on with Donald Trump is there's no crime. Watergate began with a break-in. No one has yet proved the crime of Russian collusion, if that is even a crime. Brother Dershowitz says it is not. So what we're seeing here is an orchestrated takedown. And Owen, you have talked about this ad nauseum, and I salute you for it.
Yeah, honestly, I'm getting sick of it, to be honest. And I was talking about today, I can't even imagine if you're Donald Trump, a businessman who's worried about the bottom line, you're handcuffed. You can't stop this witch hunt that's wasting taxpayer dollars, wasting resources, wasting time, because you're handcuffed. If you do that, they're going to claim you're a Russian agent. So they handcuffed him there. But, you know, you just mentioned the new FBI director, who I'm sure is going to be announced sometime soon. We don't know yet. But it is a very important hiring, I think, for President Trump, because if he gets the right person in there who gets work done and actually wants to drain the swamp, I think that gives President Trump a lot more operating room to get his agenda going without all of these false narratives being put out. But I'm just curious, was Joe Lieberman ever really being considered for this job?
Let's hope not. I mean, look, I'm from Connecticut. Joe Lieberman is a good friend of mine. We don't agree on much other than the fact that he was a better U.S. Senator than Lowell P. Weicker Jr., a Republican, better a snake in the grass than an asp in the bosom, although that's unfair to Joe Lieberman, who I do agree with on some issues. But his closeness to Senator John McCain and the fact that he's a rock-ribbed member of the Washington establishment, the two-party system that has brought this country to its knees, the president needs someone who is not a neocon, not political, someone who will restore confidence. The New York Times keeps reporting that the morale at the FBI is low. They cite no sources because it's false. I've talked to dozens of agents who believe that James Comey politicized the agency. There was no rhyme or reason to many of his stranger decisions. He declined to pursue the obvious crimes of the Clintons. So I agree with you. This will be a pivotal decision. I should mention, because we're kind of under some kind of cyber attack here, I'm relegated to the cell phone, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention the president's trip. I was very unhappy with the imagery of our president bowing down to get a medal from the Saudi king. You see, President Trump is a very tall man, and he's broad-shouldered, and much. I blame the handlers. I believe those in charge of stagecraft. I blame Reince Priebus for putting the president in a position to have a photo that the Muslim world can now use as some kind of propaganda. Put the king on a riser if necessary. It's Advanced Man 101. And I think that the president's staff has disserved him. I note to you that he did not bow to the Saudis when he was first introduced to them. He did not refrain from calling Islamic terrorism what it is in his remarks in front of his Saudi hosts. And many Americans, myself included, realize that a nuclear Iran is a problem for both of our nations. And while the Saudis do play a double game, and they did finance the attack on America, we will have to bring them to account. But first, we must take care of the threat of nuclear annihilation from a bunch of lunatics in Iran.
Yeah, and I wish that Trey Gowdy was willing to take the FBI director position. Apparently, he's not, for the reasons of the way he just grills other politicians, like the way he grilled Brennan last week. But, you know, it's interesting. I think that the reason why Trump went on this trip was to prove he wasn't an isolationist and that he's willing to take his message abroad, which I think that he did actually get those two things done. But Dr. Group actually had a question for me, and I'd like to hear your opinion on this. Do the Democrats really think that they can impeach Donald Trump?
Well, I think that there is a subset of the far left Democrats abetted by their compatriots in the mainstream media. You know, in the next segment, I expect to talk extensively about the many comparisons of what happened to President Richard Nixon, who was in fact taken down in a similar coup for similar reasons. Nixon was committed to peace in Vietnam, peace with the Russians, peace with the Chinese. He cut a strategic deal for the limitation of nuclear warheads, opened the door to China. And the deep state was deeply opposed. Now Donald Trump stands up for détente and peace with the Russians rather than war over Syria, and we attack his patriotism and scream for impeachment. We'll get into that. In the meantime, patriots, I just got my fluoride-free Bluetooth paste from InfoWars. This stuff is unreal, and I commend it to you in the fight for freedom. You can back InfoWars, back the fight against censorship, help us compete, and grab the audience that's falling off of Fox News by the second as they, quote unquote, move to the center. I'll be right back. You're at the right place. InfoWars. Many thanks.
During this Memorial Day, I want to thank the veterans that have fought, but of course, most importantly, those that have died, because that's what this holiday and remembrance is all about. Take advantage of these unprecedented specials and help support the tip of the spear in the fight against the globalists while supplies last. These are the biggest sales ever on these items. You add auto ship, several of these are lost leaders. So for myself and the entire InfoWars crew, I salute you and thank you for all your prayers on this Memorial Day. Just understand that without you, there'd be nothing, because you are the InfoWar.